IVM.
There's a quick survey to fill out on ivmpodcast.com/survey. It lets us know a little bit more about who's listening to us. And you know what? We're going to do a few prizes. So, we'll do a random drawing of maybe 10 people and we'll send you all some swag. Remember, that's ivmpodcast.com/survey where you can fill out the survey.
Folks, welcome to Paisa Vaisa. I'm your host Anupam Gupta, B50 on Twitter, and I'm really excited to feature someone I really admire for the work she has done for women. My guest, Sairee Chahal, CEO and founder of SHEROES and of Mahila Money. We're going to talk about women and money and Mahila Money and much more right after this short break.
Working Monday to Friday glued to your chair making you feel dull? Worry not. Get your 5-minute weekly dose of travel around the world with postcards from nowhere. Join me every Thursday as I explore the strange, obscure, and fascinating parts of the world and bring out facets of travel you may not have thought of before. You can find us on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you get your podcast from.
And welcome back. Sairee, welcome to Paisa Vaisa. Thank you so much for doing this for our listeners.
Thank you for having me here. It's so good to be here.
For so many years of knowing each other or at least seeing each other on Twitter, I'm really thrilled to have you on the show.
Likewise.
Great.
No, this is great. I've always been curious, about your work. So, this is my chance to learn as well.
Excellent. And let's hope our listeners can also get something out of this. So I'm a big fan of the work you've done with SHEROES, and Mahila Money just seems like such a logical step. So let's start from there. What is Mahila Money about? Or probably you can take even one step back and talk to our listeners about SHEROES and they can understand how Mahila Money fits into the whole picture.
Exactly. So I think as a founder, my thesis has always been that internet's wonderful. We all have gained a lot from it. And in a gender poor country, women can gain from the internet. So I think I spent last decade of my life building 3 different brands, first with Flexi Moms, then SHEROES, and now building Mahila Money. The thesis of all this work is very simple, Anupam. I think in a country where our gender rankings are bottom of the pile, we are patriarchal, I think we understand the gaps. What we're trying to do is, I think we're trying to be a business which is in the business of giving, being a net giver on the internet. And I think Web3 is kind of echoing that all over again, be a giver. So what we've been doing with SHEROES, first of all, is we built a lot of sense of community and we built a safe space. So SHEROES is women only. And so is Mahila Money, So our thesis is also taken from what has worked for women all over the world. And what has worked is women-only communities, women-only cohorts, whether it's Anganwadi workers, Amol or Seva or Asha workers or self-help groups, microfinance. There's a lot of success there, So I think we are inspired by that, but we're also nerds and tech geeks. So we're trying to, do this in a more efficient manner and in a more democratic manner, I think. So building SHEROES was building this large scaffolding of a community where everyone's welcome as themselves. It's no judgment zone. It's safe. You come in to hang out. You come in to learn. Learn and earn is a big thing. What we do as a company is to make sure there is a little fundamental of support available to you. Free legal advice. We run a counseling helpline. Almost 3 million women have used a free counseling helpline, from all across the country. Then there are communities around career and, other things, which might be relevant to your life, like relationships or technology or coding or whatever the case might be. So community, employment, entrepreneurship. That's what we've been building so far with SHEROES, and SHEROES is now a multi-asset network, about 25 million women all across. So we kind of came to a point where we had built a fair bit. And I think, and then the pandemic came, and what pandemic did was, one, it suddenly changed the risk appetite of the women we work, So even with things like payments, I think the adoption was there, but it wasn't as big. Then the need to make incomes. I think we all know that corporate jobs haven't grown, and for women, they haven't grown at all. Everybody in this country is an entrepreneur today, whether they're self-employed, whether they're a micro entrepreneur, whether they are a gig worker or an influencer. And I think taking these 2 things together is what brought us to Mahila Money. So as a company, what we do is everything we do helps women contribute more to the GDP of the country. But we do it by building a community that enables employment, entrepreneurship. And now with Mahila Money, we're opening access to capital for women. What is Mahila Money? You can call it a full stack financial services platform. But at heart, what we're doing is we're looking at our audience and we're saying, what does she need? What are the kind of products we should build that fit into her life? So net, that's what we're trying to do, and hoping that the more we do, the more deeper we can get with this. And of course, I think we're building for women in Middle India.
Yeah. So in this interview to the Morning Context, you had said that opening a bank account and access to payments has become gender neutral, but not the products around it. So let's talk about this. What's wrong with the financial products? I mean, what did you mean when you say that the products around it have not become gender neutral? Let's talk about that.
Absolutely. So I think the financial services sector per se it's quite paceless, and it's also quite under differentiated. There's absolutely no cognizant of know your customer, right? And I think when we talk about gender, there are some very clear needs. So for example, a large number of women in India now have a bank account, but their bank accounts actually does not reflect the reality of their financial journeys. Most people actually don't even use the bank accounts because there's some friction involved. Or you may have a bank account, but because you are a thin file customer, that bank account is pretty useless to you because you can't get a loan from the bank. So I think those are some very, very small needs that get overlooked. Or for example, even with payments, I think more and more women are adopting digital payments. They want to do more with it, but there is a little bit of lack of empathy in how they're designed. So for example, just handholding and support. Like I'll give you a big product differentiator that we think is valuable to building for women. We're building Mahila Money as a video first plan. How we all have been hung up by call center agents, and none of us likes our banking experience. And imagine you're a first-time internet users. You are on a mid-range phone, a 5,000 rupee phone. You live in a small town. You maybe run a boutique or a beauty parlor, or run maybe a yoga studio or a tuition center, and there is a little bit of a gap in your confidence in using products versus somebody who's been online forever, who's okay sort of going and tweeting about it and saying, hey, it's not working, can you resolve my query? And we think that a lot of these are very small nuances about, hey, let's build where it should be very easy for a person to say, I am really stuck here, I don't know which button to press now. Hey, I did this transaction, has something gone wrong? So taking away fear from usage is very important. Building a human relationship is very important. And since we're building things that are very central to life's decision making, loans is a big part, and most of these are productive loans, which means somebody's buying machinery or inventory or maybe a laptop for themselves. These are big life goals for people, and the entire experience needs to be very high trust. To say, कुछ गड़बड़ हो गया तो कोई मेरी मदद कर देगा. Right? They have to feel supported. I think that's a fundamental differentiator in designing products for women. Second is, of course, just the transparency of it. Like I'll give you a very small example. Every time you read about a loan in the in any of the communication from a bank or an NBFC, it'll say, take this loan at an X%, and then give you a lot of these small fine print. I think nobody wants fine print, right? And I think fine prints are low trust. Second is, there is, so what we learned is most women want to take a loan, but they want to know kitna paisa lena hai or kitna dena hai. If I borrow 10,000 rupees, how much do I have to return? Is it 10,000 rupees or 11,000 rupees, 12,000 rupees? EMI कैसे दे सकते हैं? हर हफ्ते दे सकते हैं क्या? हर रोज दे सकते हैं क्या? Can we be flexible? So in some ways, the money lender experience is actually more empathetic than the regulated experience. So I think a lot of our journey is to say, how can we make this really, really high trust for this user so that she can do more with it? A person who's taken one business loan can take another one. And of course, a lot of problem we are solving is not consumptive capital, it's productive capital. So in the end, it goes back and creates more value.
Very interesting. Let's take one step further from there, right? Let's talk about some myths, or maybe even bust some myths on women and money. Maybe what does the BFSI industry or the public at large get wrong about women and money, and what are the areas of improvement here, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think the biggest myth is the myth of pink, right? Every time you want to launch a product, just call it pink and paint it pink and send it to the user with absolutely no other change. I think this has been done, I don't know, 100 times at least. And we've seen enough of that. I think the second is just the assumption that women's needs are not different. So like I'll give you a very small example. A lot of women we work with, these are not consumer loans, okay? And these are also not business loans because their business is so informal. Imagine giving a loan to Sridevi in English language. She has a home business, she makes laddus and she sells that, okay? I think we all know at least 10 women in our life who run a informal business, right? And I think this whole customization of the persona does not exist in the financial services space. It's either productive or consumptive loan. It's either business loan. You're either a really good customer or you're a really poor customer. So I think clearly there's not enough. I mean, there's enough data, but that data is not going back into the product in any which way. I think third is I think women are very smart with their money. Women never lose money. Okay, and they may exhibit low risk profile, but in the long term, their risk profile is actually quite high because they will be consistent at it. So they're very Warren Buffett in their outlook. They're very, very consistent. They will again save their reputation and credibility over the long term much better. And of course, they're super curious. So there's an assumption that women don't want to learn about the new financial instruments or derivatives or futures or crypto. I think it's all it's a big myth. And you'll be surprised. We have women from, really every part of the country saying, humko crypto seekhna hai. Humko, they all want to sort of figure out what are the opportunities available to them. And I think the other myth is that women do want to own assets under their name. And somehow the financial services industry has not thought about this at all. Single women taking loans, or daughters buying, houses for their parents, or women. I mean, even today, most banks will say, go bring your father or your husband if you're going to take a home loan under your own name. So I think some of those, stereotypes exist in a mega way. Asset creation, wealth creation, and independence are really, they should be given more importance than they have been historically. And of course, I think the other thing is that women do want a superior treatment just in terms of how things are designed for them. I think, therefore, the group model works because it's so high trust and it's so customized to their, it's a high empathy experience. And that's something the industry is missed out by.
I completely agree with you on the high empathy experience. Tell me some stories about women and money, and I'll tell you where I'm coming from. So on this podcast, we did our very first episode on women and money back in 2019 when I had Hansi Mehrotra. And I think we had a listener on the show on the recording as well. I think one personal experience that the listener had shared was that I'm new to Bombay. I mean, you could replace Bombay with probably any other metro city or any large city. And my friends and family have advised me to stay in a safe area. And we all know what safe means. And we also know that safe areas come at a higher rent. For whatever reason, I don't want to go into the distortions of the market and all that. Do you have any similar stories? Because that's a cost that's added to my life for no fault of mine. Just because I have to choose a safe area. A man can pretty much stay anywhere that he wants.
Absolutely.
What are the stories here or examples that can help our listeners understand how this situation is so unique, probably and sometimes unfair to women?
Absolutely. So I think, look, we all pay what we call the pink tax, right? So there is a higher cost of living when you're a woman. You pay more for transport, you pay more for housing, you pay more for, for sure, personal care. And I think many, the pink tax is all evasive. It's everywhere. But I think coming back to our own community, what we see is, I think India is at a space where, and I've seen this play out now for over a decade. I think what I see is there's a rise in aspiration, huge rise in aspiration. And for example, one of when we first started Mahila Money, it's only 6 months old. We had Anushri come in from a village in Bengal. And to be honest, we didn't set out to, we in our head, our positioning was not rural. And here is somebody, and she buys saris from a store and sells them in her neighborhood. And she can barely read English, okay?
Wow.
And she was part of the first cohort of loan users. Just because she got a loan, she went, and as part of the community, these are some of the things we do, is to, invest a little bit in how to do UPI better, how to not fall for phone scams, and, a whole lot of, I think, all of that. Today, Anushri is at her fourth loan. Basically, this has become a working capital business. She's increased her income by 50%. And we would have never imagined that, these are the stories that are playing out. And guess what? Now, here is somebody who's done this 4 times, and she's literally now a role model to, all the women, not only on the platform, but the women in her own lives. And so we see this community effect really, really interesting. Another interesting, again, I think use cases in terms of how we think of products versus how a consumer thinks of products. So Neelam is a teacher. She runs a tuition center. She has a room in her house where, students come. So Neelam applied for a loan, and there's a box which says, what are you going to use the loan for? So she wrote, I'm going to buy a cooler. Okay. Now, cooler is a consumer item, and, there is BNPL and EMI. But to her, this is part of her business, because when students come, it's hot, fan is not enough, So, of course, I think there is a lot of opportunity in building very, very specific personas of users. And these are all entrepreneurial women. And I think there are at least 200 million women who are like this, who are saying, मेरे पास UPI है, मेरे पास phone है, और मेरे पास कोई community है who's going to back me up. I'm going to get that. I'm going to build something to my name. I'm going to build my business. और मेरे को savings करना है, मेरे को asset खरीदना है. Then we have Tehseen, who's actually a reseller. And 2 years ago, she started because of the pandemic. She her husband has a job and everything, but because of the pandemic, there was a crisis. Tehseen's not only become like a very successful online seller. She applied for a loan to say, "Ma'am, मेरे को washing machine खरीदना है." क्यों खरीदना? Because उसमें को 4 घंटा बचता है. So I think these are sort of some interesting, things women are doing with money, and how what we view as a certain category of expense is a huge enabler for the next person. And I think those are some very, very interesting stories that we are seeing play out. And of course, I think the other thing we definitely see is everyone wants to make sure their financial behaviors are healthy in the long term. So a lot of how can I do better with money? How can I save every day? Like we yet don't have a savings product, and every day we get calls to say, "Ma'am, हम कैसे save कर सकते हैं? हमें मेरे को रोज that historical chawal ka dabba that every family had, every mom has, somewhere money parked in the house." I think that is come online now, and we are seeing that behavior, and we are seeing a lot more. मेरे को करना है. मैं कुछ करना चाहती हूँ, मेरे को करना है, and I think for us that's really like the biggest trigger.
Fantastic. So folks, we're going to take a small break out here. On the other side, we're going to talk about what products Mahila Money has and how they can improve your life. Don't go anywhere on this really, really special episode of Paisa Vaisa. My guest, Sairee Chahal, CEO and founder, SHEROES and Mahila Money. We'll be right back.
जिस तरीके से हमारे माँ बाप ने अपने करियर की सीढ़ियाँ चढ़ी थी, वैसे आज के जमाने में तो पॉसिबल है ही नहीं गुरु, क्योंकि हमारा जमाना इतना कॉम्प्लिकेटेड है. आज क्या नहीं है, कंपटीशन है, सोशल मीडिया है, इतना इंफॉर्मेशन ओवरलोड है कि करियर का टेंशन ज्यादा होता है, उस पर काम कम. टेंशन लेने से कोई फायदा तो है नहीं. क्या करते हैं, ठंडे दिमाग से सुनते हैं प्रोबेशन से प्रमोशन तक पॉडकास्ट को हर सोमवार, जहाँ पे सिर्फ प्रैक्टिकल बातें होती हैं आपके करियर की. और कौन करता है वो? मैं आपका होस्ट अभिनव त्रिवेदी. ये पॉडकास्ट आप सुन सकते हैं IVM पॉडकास्ट की वेबसाइट, ऐप या फिर किसी भी अन्य पॉडकास्ट स्ट्रीमिंग प्लेटफॉर्म पर.
And welcome back. Okay, Sari, now let's talk about Mahila Money, right? You have, from your website, I can see you've got some 1.5 lakh women on the Mahila Money community and another 20,000 on the wait list. But I think first, what is the wait list about? I mean, you guys can't handle the crowd, or what's this about?
No. I think this is so we have an app which is on Android, but we don't have an iOS app yet.
Okay.
So this is an app wait list, and actually that list has grown. Both the wait list has grown, and also the community. Actually, almost 700,000 women who we have moved and I think that number is just sort of going through the roof for us. So let me sort of imagine what we are. Let me share with you what we're imagining in our heads, in terms of how this should play out. First of all, the vibe of this whole platform is, you can call it a community neobank. The community is still central neobank because we're not a bank, but we still sell products. And why neo? I think the most important thing we own here is the user's experience. It's very important to us that the woman never has to call anybody else besides us, and she actually doesn't have to call. She can just come to the platform and get help there. And of course, I think just the ease of experience. Like, I'll give you a interesting insight. So the first product we launched actually is small business loan. Basically, you can borrow anywhere between 10,000 to 2 lakh rupees to do anything productive with that money. So right from tuition centers to resellers to women upgrading, their parlors or their workspaces, all of that. And now we have a line of credit product. You can borrow some working capital at super lean interest. We're launching a prepaid card literally, in a week's time, which is sort of a current account without a current account. So mind you, most women don't have a registered business. They're informal sector workers, so they've historically used a wallet or historically done everything in cash. They're still a little wary of using a bank account, which is a savings account, because that's also seen as a family account. Although it may be to her name, the bank account is a personal property and it's not a business. It's not a business, instrument. So we're launching a prepaid card to collect payments and to make payments for your business. So it kind of makes it easy. And when we disperse that loan, it also comes in your card. So this kind of becomes your current account without having the heaviness of a current account. And then, of course, we have a product called Medic, which is insurance with a free gynac checkup for $94. So sachet-sized products are very big on our roadmap, because we think this is an audience that wants to do a lot more, but without taking a lot of risk. The interesting thing that we see among the user is that, hey, I should be able to come here and talk every day. So on the session, on the app, there are live sessions every day. Every day at 3:00, there's a conversation going on. And sometimes that conversation is very serious, and sometimes it's literally banterish to say, just come and hang out if you have a question. It's like AMAs, right? You know how Discord communities and Web3 communities are doing this, come and hang out. So again, going back to offline communities and women in cohorts, building trust with each other, we're doing that a lot. And I think that's how we imagine this to be, that this is a place of trust. I can come here, I can learn every day. It's transactional only 20% of the time. 80% of the time, I'm coming here because my life gets better. I also strengthen my own sense of network. I strengthen my sense of community. I learn about new things that are happening in the world. I get resources for my business. Workshop on GST kaise file kare, to how to sell better on Instagram, to everything that helps me do well in life. That's how we are imagining this. So in some ways, what Grameen Bank did, maybe 20 years ago, but a lot more digital and a lot more efficient in terms of how it works with its users. Like when we put out our loans, we say two things. You don't need your husband's permission. You don't need to ask or tell your family, and we can't ourselves believe it that that's a USP. And two, you don't have to step outside the house, and these are two big barriers. Women don't want to go back and do this whole power dynamic with husbands or whoever is the male member in the family. And two, not having to step outside the house means not having to tell where they are going one more time. So I mean, it's it's redonkulous, but it's true as well. So I think that's how we're thinking about, what we're doing.
I just noticed on the loan, interest rates of up to 20% optically sounds a little bit high. Anything out there, that you want to talk about?
Yeah, actually, that's just a outer number. Actually, most loans are processed at much lower rates. So,
Okay.
and actually, when we look at realistically, most people, when they go to money lenders or other sort of, apps, they end up paying actually a lot more. So in fact, our real rates are super, middle of that actually. But in high risk profiles, they tend to be a little high.
Sure. So who have you tied up with for these products, for the product that you offer?
Yeah, a bunch of NBFC partners and banking partners. So what we're doing is we are also creating baskets of, partners. So some folks who are very good with, let's say, capital intensive, intensive businesses. We are putting together a special cohort for energy efficient businesses, sustainable businesses. So I think within the financial services world, there are a lot of folks who specialize in the kind of capital they bring. So we are going and creating these baskets in the back end. Some are for education, some are for entrepreneurship, some are consumption. But when we put it out for our user, it's all one. So to her, it's much simpler.
What are the target audiences for your products? There's someone listening in here to this episode right now. Who do you want to reach out to?
Well, all entrepreneurial women. I think we all know women who want a business to their name. And I think, let me simply say, women building non-VC-able businesses, and women sort of building a business first as a solopreneur, and then they will end up sort of adding more to their businesses. But every business starts solo, and that's the business we're really supporting. And if you already do something, you've converted your hobby into a business, you need working capital for inventory, you need working capital to buy equipment, you need to hire more people, whatever you need to grow your business. So there's a bunch of advice, but there's also easy access to capital, which is taken care of.
What have been your key learnings so far? And feel free to speak about it qualitatively, probably some interesting use cases that have come to you, and quantitatively, probably in terms of NPAs or loan repayments and stuff like that, because I believe from whatever little data that I have, that women actually have better credit scores than men. So let's just talk about your learnings so far in the journey.
Actually, I'm myself a little astounded, and to be honest, I don't come from financial services, so I have a clean slate, so to speak. And I had heard of NPAs and everybody warned us, collections is hard, and I'm sure it's hard, and it's hard for us women, but women are really good borrowers. We have women who will, we have literally 0% NPAs. We're still young, but even the ones who delay a little bit will come and say, ma'am, मैं अगले हफ्ते payment करूँगी, मेरा payment नहीं आया. So there's a lot of trust building that women end up doing. The other thing we see is, again, our approval to disbursal ratio is 90% and above, which is kind of that, hey, again, I think refactoring that trust sort of really works. And by the way, this playbook is not new at all. This has been, Grameen's done this many times over, and this has been played many times over, in the offline world. So I think there is something to this model, and it's a beautiful model because it's a win-win-win for all. It's a little slow, and it doesn't have the, sexiness of the fintech world. It's not, it's not cred in its vibe, right? It's not all of that, but it has a lot of trust built in. And my sense is that's one thing you can't buy for your business, and you can't buy for your users. The other thing is, of course, I think India is in this major hungry mode. Everyone just wants their little place, either on the internet or in the world, somewhere or the other. So, for example, when we put out content around, your digital footprint, how to make reels. Like our most popular content session is how to make reels, and crazily so, or how to sell more on Instagram, or how to make beautiful illustrations for your, like we do a Canva workshop every now and then, and it's always filled up. People will come and say, "Mere ko seekhna hai wo acha photo kaise banana hai." So I think these are these are amazing aspirations in a, in a segment that has historically never had this platform, or this, sense of, this is a form of, you can call it a cohort-based course minus the certificate, but we see this lot, right, in developer communities and product manager communities, but women were never part of this, cool thing happening on the internet. And I think there is enough and more hunger to say, mere ko bhi cool thing karna hai, right? So I think we see a lot of that. And I think the other is, of course, constant queries about things we are not doing, so like today we don't have investments, we don't have savings account, so it's a lot of questions for us to answer every single day. When will you launch? Like we announced the prepaid card a couple of months ago, and and we delayed it because of the second wave, Omicron wave. And we've got so many questions to say, man, kab launch hoga, mera number laga lijiye, mere ko. So another wait list, internal wait list, waiting there. So it's again, I think very, very aspirational, very, very, I want to reach the sky. It reminds me of, there used to be a series called Udan on Doordarshan many years.
Classic. Kavita Chaudhary, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so it has a lot of those vibes, I got to reach somewhere, I got to, do something with myself and what I have today. So it's quite interesting to see it play out.
I really like the reference to Udan. My God, that series was really something, wasn't it? Back in the day. And Kavita Chaudhary was someone that we knew from the Nirma ad. So, maybe not go into nostalgia out there, but what a great reference. I'm thrilled, Sairee, because Paisa Vaisa has been on for some 5 odd years. We've done some, 320, 330, 350 episodes, had more than 100, 150 guests. And I think I can literally count the number of women guests that I have had on this show, and it's abysmal. However, I think this year, 2022, started off, I think I've been really, really lucky. I had Shinjini Kumar from Salt. I'm sure that you know her because I'm really impressed with the work that both of you guys are doing. Then I had Devina Sharma. I had 2 great authors of a book on money for kids. So, I really hope to increase the guests on my podcast when it comes to women, because God knows that, we need more diversity in money and finance. And I'm really thrilled to have you here, Sairee. Let's just wrap this episode on the future plans. What can we expect from Mahila Money going forward?
Well, I think our task is pretty cut out. We will continue to invest in the community. That's how we know how to get things done. And that's how we know things work in the long term. Like, I think we will continue to build trust and, also have a lot of fun with it, do interesting experiments around learning and earning and, women doing, great things with their businesses. That line of thought is very, very, clear for us. Definitely more products around the small business owner. Clearly, a segment not served either by the large plethora of government schemes or banks or by the VC world. I mean, access to capital for this cohort is very limited. At least in my head, that's a good problem to solve. And I think new instruments to solve that problem, whether it is SPVs or partnerships, or that's something, is on our whiteboard, nice and clear. Definitely a shift to a little more consumer products like, sachet insurance and investments and savings. I think they'll come along as we go from there. But for sure, I think we want to create super welcoming community for women who want to put their name out there and want to, it's the same thing, as a founder you want from your VC, right? To say, hey, like, give me more than just the money, right? So I think we will continue to make it easy for women to find this capital, and a lot of work to be done there. But my sense is, if we do this right, we could create a platform where possibly a very, very large number of micro entrepreneurs and small business owners can find their standing, can find their feet, can find that little udan that they want to take.
Anything on the investment product side? Because, I had Pinbox Solutions and they were talking about creating financial security safety nets in the form of NPS for the informal labor. But on your platform anything on investment products? Because maybe all of us need to look at our financial security in a more focused way, including women.
Yeah, it's a big area for us. There's a constant ask from women to save that, that daily savings plus my nest egg product. We haven't yet done enough work there, but it's on our bucket list. We're going to get cracking on it. We just want to make sure the loan bucket becomes robust for us, because that's a core product, and also I think a product not available elsewhere for the segment. So we definitely can visualize some of these use cases. My retirement fund versus my bucket list, my child's education security, my own daily savings. So I think there are a lot of these behavioral patterns that we want to productize, but one step at a time.
Yeah. And where can our listeners reach out to you if someone wants to know more, or do they go to a website? They just Google Mahila Money, or it's any other way?
We are available on the Mahila Money Android app. That's the main app for all women. All the men can visit our website and learn more about us. Follow our social handles, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Mahila Money is on all channels. And happy to respond to any queries that any of you has.
Fantastic, Sairee. I hope, I wish you and Mahila Money and SHEROES all the very best. Do always please come back on Paisa Vaisa, maybe in a few months' time once you have progressed. And if you have any more stories, please do return to Paisa Vaisa.
Certainly. Thank you for having me here. It's been incredible chatting.
There you go, folks. That's a wrap on this episode of Paisa Vaisa. My guest, Sairee Chahal, founder of SHEROES and Mahila Money. The website is Mahila Money. The app is on Android, and you can check them out and the work that they do. Sairee, thank you. Really, thank you so much for doing this for us.
Thank you.
And listeners, if you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm your host, Anupam Gupta, B50 on Twitter. And thank you so much for listening to Paisa Vaisa.
No material on the show should be considered as financial advice. The material on the show is for informational purposes only. Please consult a financial advisor before taking any investment decision.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Cyrus's Cock and Bull, Cyrus, Ayushi, Shreyas, and Antariksh talk about the IITIM Shadi.com endeavor and the newly conceived male contraceptive pills. We have a brand new show. It's a Marathi show called Akhand Bharat. Host Sanya Mane is an Indologist, and she takes us back to Vedic times and offers us the history and origin of many myths. On Paisa Vaisa, Anupam introduces us to Manesh Mahatme, Director Payments, WhatsApp India. Together they map out the success of digital payments in India. On the Filter Coffee podcast, Karthik speaks to Shubham Nag. He's the creator of the community Tattoo Culture. On the Life Manifesto, Zarina shares how one can go about building a strong character with good value system. And on the Habit Coach, Ashton explains the subtle but important difference between listening and hearing. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on, including the one you're listening to us on now. And also, please do check us out on YouTube. We have a number of channels. They're all available on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. We're also doing a small listener survey to help us understand you, the listener, better, and how you like our shows, how you respond to the advertising, and so on. We'd really appreciate it if you could spare a few minutes to spell it out. It's at ivmpodcast.com/survey. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors on the network this week: SBI Life Insurance, India Water Portal, and Jupiter, a digital banking app. Thank you so much for making this possible.
You're the people pleaser, right? Oh, yes. Or then desperately seeking the one? Oh, wait, you're the one who doesn't think they're ever good enough. Oh. So much drama. And for what? Is it doing you any good? Listen to me. I'm Chetna, your favorite positive action coach. Yes, I'm the one who has been dropping all those truth bombs on every episode. Oh, no. And it's time you learn to say no to drama. That's also what my podcast is called. And a new episode is out every Monday and Wednesday on the IVM Podcast app, website, as well as all major podcasting platforms.